Right, it is first round of clips time. Slightly different this week. So, two of the sporting greats, I would say, have passed away just before we recorded this episode. So we thought we'd dedicate the first round of clips and the documentary to them. So JPR Williams and Franz Beckenbauer both passed away, and for different parts of our audiences, they are going to be a huge deal. So, Mike, I think we start with your clip for round one, if that's all right.
Yeah, please. So JPR, I got vague memories of JPR as a player the first time round, because as a kid in the 70s and the late 70s into the early 80s, I just remember Mum and Dad would get a couple of friends around from the Rugby Club and to watch the games in the house, and my mother would scream her head off at the TV.
Yeah, Mum would do that.
And I had to go in the front room with my sister because I couldn't stand the noise. And her favourite player was JPR Williams. So JPR passed away a couple of days ago. This is a clip that BBC have put together, but you could make hours of JPR stuff. Oh, yeah. This is a very short clip of JPR doing what JPR did. So there we are. It was weird. People pass away all the time that you look up to, obviously, that you never knew. So when Burt Reynolds died, I was sad, and when Phil Bennett died, I was sad, and when David Soul died recently, I was sad.
Yeah,
it was weird when JPR died. It was like being punched in the gut. Like, I was trying to sort of work out what it was. It was part of it was that I loved him as a player.
Okay.
And I loved the way he played, and that sort of I loved the look and the attitude and everything else. The other thing was, and this is not meant to sound disrespectful, one of the scariest things in cinema for me was when I went to watch Pulp Fiction, and Marcellus Wallace ends up being sexually assaulted, right? Because Marcellus Wallace was a really big, hard, nasty gangster.
Yes.
And I thought, fuck, if it can happen to him, it could happen to anybody, right? And that was a weird thing for me as a young male to watch that, right?
Okay.
For the first time to sort of understand that these things, that bad things can happen to the toughest of people.
Okay.
So I know it's a weird analogy to draw, but JPR to me seemed bulletproof.
Oh, indestructible. And that's what all his teammates said.
6 months ago, with still that big shock of grey hair, the big sideburns, still that little twinkle in his eye, still a really great speaker. And I'm just a tough as teak, hard rugby player who had all the skills as well and a brilliant attitude. And I know it's daft because he was young by modern standards. He was only 73 years of age. I just thought he was going to live forever, JPR.
Yeah, yeah.
So when he died, it was like, fucking hell. It gave you a sense of mortality in a weird way. It was a bit of a weird couple of weeks with people passing away, but this one just affected me more than... And I never met him. I didn't know the bloke. I know through the podcast, I know his son-in-law, Dan, but that's about it, really. And obviously, I know people that knew him, but I never met JPR, so I shouldn't have been as affected as I was by a bloke I never met, but that's what happened.
He also... That team was so eponymous, I suppose, and there's not a huge amount of them left now. And I found myself feeling very sorry for people like Gareth Edwards and Gerald Davies. Steve Fenwick obviously was his teammate at Bridgend as well. And he was one of those players, by 70 standards, he would sort of fit in the modern games. By 70 standards, he was very big. He was 6'1" and 14 stone. And utterly fearless. And they all said, whenever you saw interviews with players, even before he passed away, they all said, he was like a maniac. He seemed no sense of caution when it came to throwing himself into big tackles, but he always came out of it unscathed. He'd end up with lots and lots of cuts and bruises, but he never had significant injuries. So he just kind of felt indestructible. He was like the sort of bionic man. And as well, he is, as Mike said, young by today's standards and kept himself in good shape. He seemed to be fit, and he just sums up those sideburns. Just sums up the 70s for me, and the socks rolled down as well, and that kit.
There's the lovely one of him with the headband when he had the longer hair, straighter hair.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah, I thought, oh my God.
Well, L'Equipe, the great French sports paper, gave Beckenbauer and JPR equal billing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Which says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, it
I
was
saw a
the
tweet
two of them.
from Danny Kelly saying, if you're not from that era, it's almost impossible to explain to people how famous that Welsh rugby team were.
Yeah. Even
and
in
how sort
England,
of culturally influential they were.
yeah. Ian Moore, the comedian, he said, I mean, I just grew up watching him, and I'm English and I don't particularly like rugby, but everyone watched that Welsh team.
Yeah.
Well, you imagine the 70s when there would have been, you'd have had a match of the day, but apart from that, there was no real football on TV. It was very much the
FA
had
Cup
to go and see it
final,
live.
yeah.
Whereas rugby, the Five Nations as it was then, was on BBC, and everyone would watch that. So even casual sports fans would watch that.
Yes.
Watch those games. And if you're watching rugby in the 70s, Wales were the team.
Yeah.
There's some mad stats. So he played England 11 times and never lost.
Yeah.
So I think he scored 5 tries against England and 6 overall. So he scored 5 of his 6 tries against England.
Yeah.
Just got up for that one game. And it's like when you're playing against your mates, your good mates. Because obviously he lived in London for a long time, played for London Welsh. Loads of really good mates through the Lions setup and everything, and the Barbars. But really wanted to put one over on England more than anything else.
Well, like Beckenbauer completed rugby, like Beckenbauer completed football. He won a Lions test with. He won a Lions test in New Zealand, a Lions series, I should say, not Lions test. He won a Lions series and won the Triple Crown and the Grand Slam. I mean, there's nothing left.
I think they're undefeated on that South Africa tour as well, including all the provincial games. Some mad start with that. Yeah,
they
just
did.
a brilliant. They're doing a thing. So this goes out whenever this goes out. So I don't know where we are
Next week. Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah.
Well, then the Saturday after this, I believe, they're going to retire his shirt down at the Brewery Field.
Oh, yeah, they're going to retire the number 15
the
shirt.
Baguette game. So I'm thinking of going down there for that. This clip though. So there's the bit when he looks like a kid on the first clip because he's 19.
Yeah.
I think physically, and he obviously hasn't got the hair, so he's got like normal kid's
Short hair.
And he's fresh out of school.
Black and white.
His shirt, the top button of his shirt's almost done up.
Yeah.
But his face looks old. And I really love that about it. His face looks like a grown man, but the rest of him is just child.
Thin.
And I think it's fantastic. Yeah, really thin child coming on.
Well, he quite often gets They quite often say junior Wimbledon champion, which of course he wasn't. He was a British boys champion.
As
British
the
junior
Times
champion playing at Wimbledon.
As the Times Orbit pointed out, a myth he perpetrated in his own autobiography,
Which
I've read. I thought he was.
I love that.
I think John Taylor mentions it in the doc about him being a Wimbledon junior champion. I thought, mate, I know for a fact that JPR's seen this, and so has the family, and he hasn't said actually. Mate,
He was a really good player, though.
Oh, he's a fantastic.
He was
John
a
Lloyd.
really good tennis player, and I think he lost.
He was the British junior
game
champion
to Rod Laver, I think.
Yeah,
and he told, it might have been Steve Jones at the Sunday Times. He said, "Oh, I would have won Wimbledon if I'd stuck with tennis."
I'm sure he thought he would have. I thought he certainly got the attitude for it.
The other
absolutely.
thing is, I read in the Times or the Guardian pieces about him. He said, "Now I would choose tennis because the money's just so much better."
Yeah, and the pressure on your body is just different.
And he said, and nowadays as well, because rugby is such a challenging sport physically, I would have a better life. and far more money if I chose tennis. Because his dad was very cynical about professional sport, and was like,
GP's done it, and his mum.
yeah. And what people forget, when the game went open in 1995, a lot of people didn't want it to.
I didn't
think it should. They were like, no, why would just leave it as it is, leave it as an amateur sport.
Yeah, I think I do 100% miss the amateur days. But when you look at it, when you stand outside it and look at it, it doesn't make any sense. We said
I think it's unjust
that everyone else is making money off.
Yeah,
it,
that's
people
what
that are putting their bodies on the line. Makes
no
sense at all.
I just think it's unfair that you could be working as a bin man or a teacher and have your tib and fib broken and then have months off work and you don't get compensated for it. And that kind of thing used to happen all the time.
Yeah. And people are paying to attend to watch your skills.
Yeah.
And there are TV companies pumping out your thing.
And players not doing Lions tours because they couldn't justify the time off work.
Yeah.
That used to happen.
Talking to Gareth the other week, which still blows my mind, right? Talking about the heroes of those days. So when I'm going to watch Cardiff play, I'm going to end up going for a pint with Gareth Edwards afterwards in the sort of bar under the stand. I'm like, this is different, right? But his stories about that era when JPR would have been playing with them, obviously they were good mates and good teammates. But he said he remembers once that they were invited to bring their wives to an after dinner thing, which after game thing, which never happened, but +1. So he took Maureen with him. And then about 2 weeks later, he gets a bill from the Welsh Rugby Union for his wife's meal.
This doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
I thought, you've got to be... Can you imagine it?
Wow.
Well, do you know what, though? He retired. He still had a lot of rugby left in him, but he thought he was being unfair to his work and his employer. And JPR was told, you have to concentrate on medicine.
We didn't go on the 77 Lions tour because of that.
Yeah,
he was told to concentrate on,
Really?
Yeah. If you want to be a surgeon, then you need to knuckle down, mate. Was basically the message. Which is why one of those the try that he scores in that Barbarians against Lions match, that there was a level of edge to that one because that was the Lions who'd come. It was a little bit later, but it was the Lions who'd come back on tour against a lot of the lads who didn't go that time round.
I just find it amazing though. You could be a Welsh international's boss and not see the value in employing a Welsh international who is 31 years of age.
Well, mate, this I'll be linked to the modern day briefly, right? About because it does sort of. So Emmanuel, I always get his name wrong. Sorry, Emmanuel Boso. Am I saying that right?
Landed place for Exeter on the wing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emmanuel, right? I'll call him Emmanuel. I apologise if I forgot about the last name wrong. He's there doing his medical studies, and this looks like now that he's going to be in the England setup and whatever else, which is a real shame, right? And part of that is because he went to do apparently, if I get this wrong, I apologise, but this, from what I understand, he wanted to do his medical degree or medical training at Cardiff University, couldn't get in.
Didn't get the grades, I think,
Yeah, so got a place at Exeter University to do it, right?
No, so initially he gets a place at Aston University and he was playing with Wasps. So Wasps were based in Coventry at the time, and then they go out of business. So he's then transferred down to Exeter, offered him a place in the squad. Exeter Uni have offered him a place there. So he's already transferred his studies.
So if you base on what Ellis was just touching on there, right? Why isn't there any sort of joined-up thinking in Welsh rugby? So why don't Cardiff University Medical School, right? We've got a good rugby team and good everything else, and all. Why don't they work with the Welsh Rugby Union, with Cardiff, with the region? So why don't they say, okay, you haven't got your 3 A's, you've got 2 A's and B or whatever it might be, right? Mm-hmm. But you know what? You're a first-class rugby player. There's every chance that with the right backing you can play for your country. Wouldn't it be better for Cardiff Medical School, which is a business, for every time they mention Emmanuel to say who's doing medical studies at Cardiff University? Wouldn't that be better for you?
I think scholarships probably are the way forward. Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes perfect sense, and tie-ups. I think he's dual qualified anyway, so whatever decision he makes, it's up to him.
Yeah,
not, you can feel whatever you want to feel.
Yeah,
and play for just because you play Cardiff under 11s doesn't mean you're Welsh, or you feel you can't play for England.
No. He has mentioned Wales before. I don't. I don't care. There's an awful lot of nonsense gets talked about online about things like this, by the way.
Yeah.
People, what about Heather? I thought about this, mate.
Yeah, tough.
Give your head a shake, will you?
But you can feel whatever you want to feel. Doesn't.
But also, someone said, "Would you play for England?" I said, "Well, if Wales wouldn't pick me, yes, 100%, I'd play for England."
Yeah, but also you look at the current Wales, the recent Wales squads. Then Moriarty played England 20s. Callum Sheedy played for England against the Barbarians.
Well, we've got Tompkins,
Johnny Williams played 20s. Sam Tompkins. There's loads of that happens.
Shanks was English.
Yeah,
Any Shanks? You listen, Shanks? Hey, Shanks? Hey.
Love it.
He's as English as David Flatman, that man.
Two of the most English people I know. I think there's a lot in there, isn't there? I think JPR took an extra year to do his studies. Yes.
Yeah, there's that great picture of him when he's 19 and he's played for Wales already, and he's in his halls of residence, and he's got all his textbooks out, and he's got the lamp on, and he's revising for his medical degree. And it's just a different time. Although Jamie Roberts did it as well.
Chucked him in at 19 as well. I think brilliant. Gareth Edwards was captain at 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just chuck them in if they're good enough. I've never believed in that. You got to earn your place. You got to put the years and put the time in first. Not really.
No.
Not if you're good enough.
No, absolutely.
What was Gary Schofield, 17 when he played for Great Britain in Rugby League?
Yeah, that whole lot.
Yeah.
Farrell, Sean Edwards.
Farrell was really young.
Yeah,
Sean Edwards was really young.
Yeah, they worked.
These clips, right? That the tackle against France, which is the one that. Well, so I don't know if this is true.
Go on.
But I read that at the time you didn't have to wrap. Like a shoulder charge was a legitimate challenge.
Shoulder on shoulder is a legitimate tackle. Yes, in that era. Yeah.
Christ, in that case, it is one of the best legal tackles I've ever seen in my life.
Well, he talked about the thought process. He said, if I wrap, I saw an interview with him about this. He said, if I wrap and take him by the legs, he's going to ground the ball and then he'll have scored anyway.
Yeah.
So it has to be a shoulder charge, which obviously was fine at the time. Nowadays it would be a penalty try, wouldn't it? And sin bin and all that kind of stuff.
Red card probably for that. But I mean.
Yes.
Because when I watched it before the interview and thought, how has he stayed on the pitch?
Yeah.
And then saw the interview and realised that it was at the time legal. But it's just a great bit of initiative. It's like the one Gerald Davis did against that French winger, where he jumps on his back and spins him round because he knows if he tackles him in an orthodox way, he'll ground the ball and score the try.
Yeah.
And to think that quickly under that pressure, I'm just so impressed with that.
I like JPR's reaction as well.
The double fist pump.
Just straight to the crowd. Because he's obviously...
Well, there's a copper. There's a couple of coppers right there and there. And the smile on the one copper's face is superb.
Any copper or steward who is more into the game than they should be, I love.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I went to watch Palace Brentford the other day with one of my kids, and the steward behind us was singing all of the chants throughout the match, and I bloody loved it.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Why would you want to be a steward if you couldn't watch stuff like that?
Yeah. Absolutely.
It must be very depressing to be a steward because you think you get to watch it, and then your job is
it's worse than being. It's worse than being at home.
Yeah,
you got your back to the action.
Yeah, there's a great photo of Aaron Wainwright with his dad, isn't there? Who's a copper,
Adrian.
Yeah, and he's got the policeman's helmet because he was a steward, a policeman at one of the matches the other day, and Aaron's got his police hat on at the end of the game. Next,
Adrian's a good player, good back row player.
Was he? Yeah.
Yeah. Not a very good squash player. Sorry, rugby.
That's good. Right, so we'll do more on JPR in the documentary.
Yeah.
Because we found a really good audio documentary about him. So we will do that in a bit.
But can I just say, before we do the next clip?
Yeah.
Speaking of people that influenced your life.
Yes.
So if you listen to this podcast regularly, you might know the Wimbledon story, for amongst other stories.
Yeah.
So the chap who was, I can now reveal, the chap who was driving that minibus, who was absolutely brilliant, and we all loved him in school. He was a cracking teacher. Also played first class, played in that 1970s Bridgend team we just talked about.
Alongside Steve Fentwick and JPR.
Yeah. Was just a brilliant bloke called Tony Hodge, whose son Matthew, I think, listens to the pod as well. And Tony passed away on the same day as JPR and friends.
Oh, gosh.
And he was just, he was... We were very lucky in that school, Barry Boyce Compton. It was quite a tough school, but the PE department were brilliant. And he was certainly one of my favourite teachers. Left a real mark. And Mammoth, Mammoth is not him, right? But it's an amalgamation of my experiences and the people that, as a teacher and as a kid. And there's an awful lot of Tony Hodge in there. And his son got in touch and said, at the time, is this based on my dad? I said, well, no, not on your dad.
Yes.
But I mean,
me and your dad, yes.
There's elements of that in there, definitely. I said, why is that a problem? He said, no, Dad loved it. Which made my year. So, Tony passed away on the same day. So if you're listening, Matthew, love to the family, and I'm going to raise a glass tonight to Tony Hodge, who was one of those sort of Mr. Pigden type teachers that were like when you see the Ian Wright thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
he was just a top bloke, handsome man, good rugby player, great sense of humour, really good teacher, and love to his family.
All right, so as a nod to him then, here is that Wimbledon story once more.